And here we are. I think that was actually kind of loud.
You don't actually have to do that when we're doing this.
Oh, that's right. Good point. Well, welcome everybody to the Two Chicks with Hiking Sticks podcast. I'm Susan.
I'm Monica.
And we cover the natural, historical, and cultural things that abound around us.
And they are abounding.
They are something, that's for sure. So, sometimes whenever I'm thinking about what we're going to cover in our podcast, I go back and look at what we have covered in the past. And then I look at what's new, what we're going to cover. And I get all excited. And I realize maybe I should involve you in some of them, Monica.
Does my bored face make you feel like,
It makes me sad, Monica. It makes me sad. I'm just saying.
You know what? I'm excited about one of the upcoming blogs that we're doing.
Oh, really?
We're going to go see it for the real. Yeah.
Oh, that's true. So we are going to do it on location. Well, I'm not sure exactly how we're going to do that. But yes, we are going to a place together that we will then cover. Yes. But these two places, well, this one place today, Andersonville National Historic Site, is a place that had you ever heard of it?
But again, when you ask me these things, you already know that 99% of the time my answer is going to be no, I have not heard of it.
And it breaks my heart every time. I'm like, everybody's heard about Andersonville.
Left because
it's been broken about, how many episodes are we on?
Every time we talk.
Well, I decided to cover Andersonville National Historic Site because it is such a significant place in our history that I'm like, we got to cover it. I mean, it's a, I'm not going to say fascinating, but it really is it is a very interesting place to go to and how it has evolved. So we're going to cover this.
Okay.
So to start with, because, let's talk about where it's at. So Andersonville, for those of you who do not know, is located in Georgia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's just south of Atlanta or southwest of Macon, Georgia.
Okay.
It's actually, because I've been to it a couple of times.
No.
I know. Hold your excitement. Twice I've been there.
Repeat visits.
Because it was so worth it to go. I went a second time because it's like the first time you go someplace, it's like you're just trying to get the high spots. I don't know. You're just trying to get that in, right?
The highlights.
But you go a second time because you really want to understand and absorb what everything is. And so I went a second time. So because the first time I went, I swear it was probably like in 2010, 2011. And the second time I went was in 22. So a few years in between. But anyhow, so it is south of Atlanta. And I will say this, because not a whole lot of people go, like less than 100,000 people go a year. And, with this podcast, my goal is to continue to put this stuff out there to make it interesting for people to go to, because I feel bad that it doesn't get a lot of visitors.
Okay.
Okay, so that's where it's located. Doesn't get a whole lot of visitors. But if you go to Andersonville National Historic Site, it's not that far from the Jimmy Carter. I don't know if it's a National Historic Park or what they call
his
him.
library, maybe the presidential library.
No, it's not his library. It's like where he grew up, went to school, all of that.
Okay, like Plains, Georgia.
Yeah,
isn't that Plains?
Yeah. I guess it's Plains. It's not that far from Andersonville, so that's why you could do both of them.
Okay,
2 for 1. Okay, so Andersonville.
So tell us, what is the draw? What was it that pulled you there and actually made you go back? If there's that, if it's not as visited as much as other places, what was it that made you go there twice?
Well, the first time I went there is because I'm so interested in Civil War battles and things like that. And this was a Civil War prison.
Oh, okay. And that's different.
yeah, it was a military prison, and it was a military prison that was built basically for 10,000 prisoners, but they had a whole lot more than 10,000 there. They
I'm
had like
sure.
40,000 that passed through there. And this is
Holy.
what made it, yeah, this is what made it really significant in our history, is that it is one of the most renowned military prisons, certainly in America, that that oh, like 13,000 people died in this prison. Like the conditions there were just horrible, horrible.
Hmm.
And and so I needed to go back because I really wanted to appreciate it more, because what I think is also of significance is that they then, so this became a National Historic Site, right? And it was for the fact that it was this military prison. But then later on in 1998, it became the National Prisoner of War Museum.
Oh, okay.
And that is a very, very, very good reason to ever want to go to this place.
Okay. I could see that. I could see that.
Yeah, because, the fact that it was a military prison was like the thing, right? So it was a military prison, and it was in operation for like 14 months, but it was in like 1864 to 1865, which, those were the waning years of the war.
Right.
And it finally, when the war ended and, the Union forces are coming in going, what the heck is all of this? Because the men basically that were there, I mean, were like skeletal. I mean,
Oh,
the conditions were horrible. They had nothing to sleep on. They slept on the ground. They didn't really have tents unless they could piece them together with materials that they had. They really didn't have food. They didn't have hardly anything. And
so
so,
were these outside? Were they
yes.
being held outside?
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah. So if you go to Andersonville, there's like two sections. One section is the actual prison, which I want to say takes up like 20 some odd acres. It's the actual prison, and it is just an outdoor prison,
Wow.
basically.
Okay.
Now, they don't have a lot of that. It's not still like constructed. They have some parts that outline what it is, some of the palisades, the fencing and all. They have
Right.
some of that there to kind of give, here's the cornerstone of where this was, and this is what that looked like, and all of that. Um, and then you have the cemetery. So when the Union forces came in after the Civil War ended in April 1865, the Union forces came in and were like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. They then established a cemetery, the Andersonville National Cemetery, in July. So from April to July, they were like trying to figure out what are we going to do, and they established a national cemetery, which is still active there.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, eh, the scale of this prison, the amount of death in this prison was a lot.
Yeah, it
Not a good thing.
sounds well, I guess it is not uncommon to build or create something with the idea of a set capacity and immediately throw that to the wind and just shove whatever you have in there. We've seen it recently. So,
Yes.
you
And that's
know,
a really good point, is that, so you think, did we learn? No. It's like you
no.
build what you can, and then you just do whatever you need to do with it.
Yeah, or do
And
what you want. I mean, there's obvious parameters that whoever's in charge is like, screw the parameters. Yeah,
well, yes, that's exactly what happened.
yeah,
And that's why so many men died. And when the Union, one thing I thought was interesting about this is that when the Union forces came in to kind of, obviously liberate the prison,
right.
and start to, the first thing is that they saw so many shallow graves because of the number of people who died there, right?
Yeah,
And it was Clara Barton. Who is Clara Barton? Founder of the
I've
American Red
actually
Cross.
heard of Clara Barton. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, we've made a connection.
Yay me.
Um, so Clara Barton was actually there helping to identify these remains to help, get them properly reinterred into the
Yeah,
National Cemetery. So I thought that was interesting that there's that connection with her. there as well. But yeah, you've got these two parts. Now, the entire park, I think, takes up like over 500 acres, but you've got these two separate sections within the park. You've got, the prison part, and then you've got the National Cemetery that is there. Um, but the key thing there, which I thought it was done so well, was the actual museum, the POW museum. That really, I think maybe even on their website or something, it's like it's humanizing the experience, that you really understand what our POWs go through. Because again, now we start stepping away from it being a Civil War prison to
Right.
being a POW museum, and really understanding that experience that our POWs from all around have had.
Okay. And
So,
that's what I was going to ask for clarification. Like, is this POW just for that era, or POW for every POW that that has survived a war? So yeah,
yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah, because
And
it's
that I would visit.
well, see, I knew I would find something for you.
That I would
But
visit to honor, the
because the
history part.
museum, but you've got
Sorry.
to see that part if you're going to be there.
I
Um,
know.
but the museum part really is well done, and the exhibits in there are really nicely done. I really, I was just amazed by just how well they did that. But again, that's at least more recent, because that was 1998 that they did that.
Right.
Now, one of the things I always thought was interesting too is that they also call this Andersonville place back in the day Camp Sumter. And not that you're going to know this, Monica, but I'm just
I,
going to.
I have heard of Camp Sumter. Now, I
Camp.
don't know anything about it, but I have heard of it.
Have you heard of Camp Sumter, or have you heard of Fort Sumter?
I've heard of Sumter. How about that?
Okay, so the thing I want to say about it
Might
is
have been
that don't
Ford.
get those
I don't
two
know.
confused.
Too
So
late.
so Camp Sumter was where this prison was, and it was because that was in the county of Sumter. So there was that. Now, Fort Sumter, not the same thing. Fort Sumter was the fort that was the first battle of the Civil War. So spelled the same,
That's probably the one
totally
I've heard
different.
of. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's usually what most people have heard of. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so the life in that stockade, where those people were in prison, horrible conditions, and that just went on and on and on, right, for years, until ultimately the Civil War finally came to an end in 1865. But again, when I go back to now, yes, the prison part, then you've got the museum part for the POWs. It's cool in that there are a lot of there's personal artifacts, there are oral histories that are in there. Certainly there are exhibits, and this is one of the unique things about this NPS site, is that it does honor all POWs from the Revolutionary War to pick a current war.
Wow.
This is the museum that covers them, and that's the whole relation. This is this whole timeline, and this is why I'm like, how come more people don't go to this place?
Yeah. Well, now that you've explained it, I think you might open up, like me, thoughts about, that would be something that I would be interested in visiting. And also, just a note here, a personal note, as we've been talking about this, I've just realized that you don't really hear the terminology prisoner of war anymore.
That's a really good point.
Currently, you don't hear it. And we know that there are wars that are happening all over the world, which we are involved in, which whether we're involved through a sanctioned effort or an unsanctioned effort, we are involved in these wars. And I am sure that there are people that have been caught or taken or being held hostage, but you don't hear anything about anyone being held a prisoner of war. I don't think I've heard that terminology used since maybe like Korea.
Oh no, it's been more recent than that.
Oh,
So
okay. Yes. Okay. My bad. I remember now. There probably were some references during Afghanistan and some of those
Iraq.
altercations, right, in Iraq. But
Mm-hmm.
really, you don't hear it that often. Even back
No.
then, I don't remember hearing it very often.
But one of the things that is interesting about this being in the United States is that when the Geneva Conventions expanded in the 20th century, the the talk about this prison and the Civil War prisons that we had were often cited in the discussions. And that's why also we formalized international standards about how they
Sure.
should be treated.
Right.
So it's always interesting to see how the United States influences some of that in the international world,
Hmm.
and that comes from some of our bad places that happens, right?
Yeah.
But it is interesting, that influence. So
Yeah.
yeah, so maybe it's just because we don't have the same scale of wars as we once used to have. I mean, you think about 13,000 men died in this prison. That's a lot of people that died in that
Yes.
prison.
Yes.
Normally
That
in
is a
our
lot of people.
conflicts, yeah, and normally in our conflicts, we're not as many people are dying or being taken prisoner because
Right.
the warfare is different, I guess I should
Right.
say. So one of the other things, because you always wonder, is there a conclusion to these things, right? So you think about Nuremberg trials and stuff like that, right? So the commandant of this prison, which I think is interesting, his name was Henry Wurz, I think is his name. Yeah. So prison stops April 65. They do the cemetery in July, and he goes on trial in 1865. That trial lasted 2 months. 2 months
Holy.
this trial lasted. I'm like, I don't know why it had to take 2 months, but it
Trying to
lasted 2 months.
decide, did he make a mistake shoving all those people in there? Oh, 2 months.
Yeah. So it took 2 months for that to happen. And then he was found guilty. And in less than a month, he was hanged. Boom.
Whoa.
But it's interesting because I think some of our other things that we've covered, like when there have been those kind of outcomes, like, man, there's swift justice that happened back then.
Yeah. Side question here. Is commandant, is that like a word that you use for anybody commanding in this kind of area? Because when I think of commandant, I think of Hogan's Heroes.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. I don't know that I ever thought about it. It's just I don't know. I don't actually know what the definition of commandant is. I don't know if that's
Or is
for.
that a word you used, or is that what they actually used? Do you know?
That's what I'm trying to see if I can
Because he'd be like a
find.
warden, wouldn't he? Just like a
Oh no,
warden?
well, it's in the thing. The camp's commandant, Henry Wurz, was tried for war
Whoa.
crimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Isn't that, I mean, I've always just associated that with being a German word.
Now that
And
you
that
say
was
it,
well before. Yeah. That's interesting. Okay. Okay.
well, that's your point of reference is Hogan's Heroes.
Well,
I'm not sure what that says.
Herr Kommandant.
So yeah, so I mean, so it's always interesting to see the timeline of, it was a bad prison, everything was bad. Hey, who was responsible? Well, hey, he was tried, and then boom, he was dead. It's like tried, convicted, and then killed, right?
Wow.
But the cemetery there is really pretty, but it's it's always sobering. I mean,
Yeah.
you go to some of these sites and it's just sobering when you see how many headstones that there are,
Right. Right.
and how close they are together. So, but it's a good place to go and pay your respects. The other thing too is that there are audio tours that you can take for both the prison and for the cemetery, National Cemetery, and those are, I would say, really worth it. So I did more of that the second time that I went, and I really thought that was worth it because then you really start to understand how they were actually living on the day to day. So the narration really helps bring it home. So just something for you to think about as well.
Nice. Okay. I would do this. I like doing those.
Doing the audio tours.
I like the audio tours. Yeah.
Well, because it's just like having your own little guided tour, except you get to
Right.
be in your car.
Yeah, because you could be looking at something and thinking, what is this? Boring. And then there's a narration that's telling you something astronomical about that, and you're like, wow, okay.
Right?
Yeah, so I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are many books, I think, written on this particular this particular prison. So it's always something that if you're ever interested in more of it, you could actually read a book about it. A lot of fiction books, and then there's some nonfiction, like first accounts. Like shortly after being liberated, there was one of the folks that actually had, because they kept diaries and stuff the best they could, and actually wrote a book not too many years after getting out. So just something that if anybody's interested in learning more, you can. So Monica will be checking that book out on her Libby any moment now. I can feel it.
Yeah, no. But you know what? I will credit the book club where I live, which we call ourselves the literary club.
Oh, that's
they
so
have really
unique.
I know. They have really forced me to step out of my comfort zone as far as certain books. That I have read a lot of, things about war and history and stuff that I read because I'm part of the club. And then we have some really good discussions. So I think if you're not into reading that kind of stuff, maybe joining a book club, for anybody that's interested, find a book club that kind of makes you expand your boundaries there. It's good for you. I don't know if it's good for me, but it'll be good for you.
But that's a really good point, because it's not a book that you're naturally going to gravitate to go pick, right? But if somebody else picks it and says, hey, we're going to read that this month or whatever.
Yeah.
I will read something. When I was in a book club once, I will read books of fiction that I wouldn't normally read.
I'm not even going to go there. Yeah, I'm going there.
I'm starting to change my mind a little bit because of Critical Role, but we're not going to go there either. Because it doesn't. Let's not even go there. No. Okay, so I think that's about it for Andersonville National Historic Site. That it is definitely worth, because everybody goes to Atlanta at least once in their life. Just drive a little further south. Now, I will say, getting to it, you feel like you really are in the middle of a bunch of farm fields, but you eventually get to the site, and you have to remember that's kind of what it was back in the day. So there's that.
Right.
But I highly recommend it.
And there's no actual hiking, but I imagine with it being on that much acreage, you're doing a lot of walking.
Yeah, because I did a lot of walking, because you can walk around a lot of that perimeter of like the prison, and then you can walk through the cemetery.
Right.
So it's never quite hiking per se. And this is the thing, and I'll probably say this in other videos too, but Civil War sites, for some reason, our battlefield sites are great places for people to run and walk. There's a lot of that happens in those parks. So there's that.
Okay.
Because they're so peaceful. So there you go.
Yes.
Okay, so that was our learnings for the day. Andersonville National Historic Site.
I might put it like towards the bottom middle of my list.
Well, that's something. All right. Well, I guess that's all we have. Do you have anything you would like to add, Monica?
No, I don't. But I did learn something, so I'm good.
Yeah, there's a lot to be learned in that place. And again, it's a POW museum, so you should go.
Yes, and that's the reason it's like in the middle of the list.
All right. Well, then if we have nothing else, just remember, go hike your own hike. And we'll check you next time. Bye.